Well, I think it's 10 o'clock. Time to talk.
Good morning.
Hello, it's time to play.
Actually, I'm eating breakfast.
Well, you can join us. Uh, I want to make sure that everybody has got themselves turned on here, and we'll be ready to start promptly at 10 o'clock. Bob, are you here? Rick? Brett?
Yeah, I'm here.
All righty. Well, here we go. Now, the first thing we want to do is make sure that you've got your screen set so that you can see what I'm going to do. Because when I share a screen like this, I want you to be able, whoop, wrong button, to be the first time I hit the wrong button. You know, all of a sudden I lost myself here. Uh, what we want to get to is a point where uh, you've gone to the view section. First, you've made the Zoom workplace full screen and gone down to where it says speaker and click that. And then you click down there a little further that says hide self view. And you should be able to see see me full screen. But that's the place to start. Now, I should be sharing a screen that shows my Lightroom, and it should be full screen on your computer. So if we're not there, this is the time to fix it. Now, what I wanted to start bringing up here is here's a photo that's like so many that a person takes when they're covering a family event. And you just have to shoot it where it is. And sometimes you don't have the light you really wish you had. This one's shot at 250 of a second, which you would need for that setup. But the ISO is 40,000. And when you zoom in on it, you can see quite readily that it's got a lot of noise. What I want to begin with is a quick look at a couple of other programs. Um, First, I want to unshare this screen and share the screen for, whoop, share the screen for Photolab. Okay. You are screen sharing. Stop sharing. Now it's going to let me share again. And I can move over to Photolab. Um, the reason I wanted to show you
Hello,
Photolab
am I
is,
in?
hello, you there? The
Can you
reason
hear
I
me?
wanted to show you Photolab, first,
Barely.
okay, says my internet connection is unstable. That's not a good sign. Anyhow, quick look at Photolab. I brought the same picture in and it's got the same noise, but what it will do for you, the thing that is important, I click customize up here and then
No, it's all right.
little foot over here that says detail, it has a deep prime noise reduction. And that's what this program will offer you. And if I close all this and go back to Lightroom, which is what I need to do here, Ooh, there we go. Now, I've already run this through Photolab. And so let's go down here to my collection and take a quick look. That's what you get, the cleanup, running it through Photolab. And I'm hoping that you're able to see a tremendous difference between these two. Now, Photolab is, to my mind, the best noise reduction out there. But there is another alternative, and that is to take this picture, go to the develop module in Lightroom, and they have a denoise feature in here. Now, this is relatively new, but it gives you a couple advantages. It has a amount slider that you can adjust for how much you want it to smear things out. The problem I have with it, I mean, it's pretty good, but it also tends to blunt some of the resolution. And, you know, they have an enlargement feature with it too. But if you hit enhance, it'll take it about 20 seconds to go through and make its noise reduction. And then we'll see it here in a second. And it's pretty good. I mean, it's not flawless, and it's not as good as Photolab, but it's pretty good. It's not as quick as I thought it is. Anyhow, what we're going to do today while we're waiting for this to go through is, first of all, answer your questions regarding the setups that I talked about in the two handouts that I referenced. Then we're going to walk through the develop module a little bit, talk about the different sliders and how to use them to advantage. We're going to talk about a couple features in Topaz AI. We're going to talk about the curves feature in Photoshop. We're going to talk about how to get rid of, let me go out full screen here if I can. How to get rid of this guy that's sitting over here in the corner on this picture. There are tools to do that in both Lightroom and Photoshop. My preference is to go to Photoshop, and I'll talk about a couple different ways to make that work. We have some star pictures down here. Whoop. Can we see it? Yeah. We can talk a little bit about how to adjust those sorts of things and the latitude that you have doing that. We're going to go to my great aunt's funeral. That's always a kick. And look about how we can make a photo that really is pretty soft. You know, the early color photos, yeah, it was nice to have color, but you could not get sharpness in that early film. And in Topaz, there's a way to get that sharpness back. And we also have a waterfalls over here that we may get to, we may not. But that's kind of what we're up to. If we go back here, it's still chewing on this, but it gives you an idea. If you are going to run this on a whole bunch of photos, you're going to be sitting here quite a while. With either the Topaz or the Photolab setup, you can batch files, which means you don't have to sit here while it runs. And that's definitely an advantage. Now, here, this is the noise reduction we just made. Let's go up and look at these faces. You can see there's some noise still there. If you can see close enough, let me run this up to 300. And you can see it's a lot better, but it's just not what you'd hope it would be. Here we're switching to a photo that was processed in Photolab. And it is subtly better. There's more detail. The noise is not so pronounced. So there is an advantage. But when you consider, going back to the original, just how much of a mess this was coming out of camera, uh, the importance of doing some kind of a noise reduction, it gives you usable photos from situations that you otherwise would lose. And when you're dealing with family photos, once in a lifetime, this was part of a wedding. Uh, you have to shoot where you are, and you really don't want photo failures because it's only going to happen once. At least with a wedding, you hope it's only going to happen once. Let's take this photo that's straight out of Topaz and look at some of the things that Lightroom has to offer. First, we're going to go to the Library tab, and you can keyword these. You can have it search. I've clicked down here at the bottom on the little picture frame and try and match up names of people, and then it will automatically keyword those in. After you get it trained by saving a few people that show up on a regular basis, uh, you'll find that it finds and recognizes people pretty quickly. I have a keyword list that includes an awful lot of people, and and it does a pretty good job of sorting out who's who. It's not flawless, but it works pretty effectively. You also can see your metadata, which is kind of important because it shows you a lot of the information about how the picture was shot, and it gives you an opportunity for GPS information. And also, where is the caption section? This is not moving as quickly. There we go. The caption section here that allows you to type some helpful language into the metadata of the file. So that will then follow the file when you post it online or save it so you can write notes to yourself. And this is outside of the Lightroom catalog. So it will actually be in the file if you share the file with someone else. Develop module. Okay, we're going to start at the top. Uh, if you're concerned about white balance, do you see the little arrow up here that you can come in and click on something that you hope is gray? It didn't like it because it didn't have enough color. Oh, there it did. So here's the white balance we just did. Here's as shot. It'll make a stab at it. I'm going to go back to as shot. When I adjust these sliders, I start at the bottom. And up here at the top, you see the histogram. Turn these on, these corner things, and you will know if you're blowing out highlights or blacks. So here you see the blacks coming in as blue where they're blown out. Try and pull them back until the little triangle disappeared in the corner. Whites, see, turns red. Pull it back until you get the little triangle in the corner to disappear. And you've got your white point and your black point. Now, shadows and highlights work exactly the opposite. You don't pull highlights up, you pull highlights down. Because when you pull highlights down, you get more separation in your high tones. Shadows, you pull shadows up to open up the dark areas in your picture. And then, of course, you can work on contrast and exposure. This one's a little dark, so we're going to pull it up. Going on down. Now, if you're going to finish in Lightroom, Go ahead and adjust the texture and the clarity. When I do texture, I try to go in so I can see what it's doing to the eyes. And in a picture like this with a lot of noise, it's pretty tricky what you're going to do. Clarity, full screen. See, we've already got this picture popping pretty good. Uh, Vibrance and saturation really depends on your picture. If you have, if you click the auto button, it'll take a stab at it and will bump saturation and vibrance up. That's not something you always want to do. So you want to make sure that you're not sabotaging yourself with this. If you run the auto and then it's oversaturated, it's because it bumped up the vibrance and saturation. I don't use this tone curve because the one in Photoshop is so much better. Point color. Let's look at this for a second because it is cool. Let's say you wanted to adjust this guy's coat. Well, you can just click on it with the eyedropper. It will give you a swatch, and then it will address that color wherever it appears in the picture. Notice that color is appearing a lot of places in this picture. So instead of doing his coat, let's go get this girl's blue skirt, purple skirt. That color, you can slice the hues again wherever it appears in the picture. Saturation. Now, you can use the point color with, I'm going to hit the Alt key, reset point color. You can use that with the masking tools. We'll get there. So if I click the little asterisk thing up there in the corner, it should open my masking tools. And you know, there's a lot of fancy stuff in here about detecting people. Detecting people is a good thing if you have like a photo shoot where you have a lot of variations of the picture of the same person. You can make a set of adjustments. Let's get her. Okay, we're going to detect her, and then it's going to detect her skin and her clothes and her hair and her eyes and her pupils. Uh, and you can set up an adjustment using this body skin, facial skin, and then copy that into all your other pictures from the photo shoot of that same person. And that's a way to automatically carry these adjustments over that are targeted to masked areas. Uh, that's about the only time I find this useful. What I use instead, by and large, linear gradient. You can use that to frame out areas in your picture. But there's a couple things, just a simple old-fashioned brush, which you can get by pressing K. It's a keyboard shortcut. Uh, you can select, and it will select with bounds. Okay, we're doing this quick. Auto mask will try and find the edges for you. So I've got auto mask negative, and I'm going to try and trim right around this skirt real quick. And you can see how fast I'm working. And if I was a little more patient, I could get a better outline here. Where I'm headed is these are all the adjustments you can make on the targeted area alone. A lot of times clicking K, getting a mask and painting some texture into the eyes is a really nice step. But in here, you've got point color. Okay, now we're going to point color on that dress, and we're going to change the hue where we want. I like it over here. Make it a little more saturated, maybe. Make it a little brighter. Remember when we used point color without the mask, it was picking up things all through the image. Now we've masked this area, and you can use the point color to to focus right in. This also, well, skin tones are a problem, but you can use this for skin tones. You can use it for a lot of things. So we're going to go back to our main edit page. The eyeball up here next to the masking, that is Lightroom's red eye feature. And I find that that red eye feature is better than the one in Photoshop, and so that's what I use. These are their remove tool options. And if you've got just a little something that you want to get rid of, like his camera up there, I mean, you can do something small and get away with it if you don't want to come over to Photoshop. But the tools are so much better in Photoshop that I don't fool with that. What else is here that we need to look at while we're here? Sharpening. Now, sharpening in Lightroom, it's more than just moving this slider over. The program default comes with an automatic level of sharpening built in. I turn that off. I want to be able to see what I'm doing. And here's how you see. I'm going to hold the Alt key down and click on the mask slider and pull this over. And instead of sharpening the whole image, this tells you just how specific it's going to be to the edges in the image. And that way you don't sharpen. Remember, we took a lot of noise out of this image. We don't want to sharpen the whole image. We want to just pick up the edges that are important to us. And then you can adjust. I'm going to go back up. You can adjust the amount of the sharpening that you want. See, I'm pulling in too much noise. I'm going to raise this mask a little. This is going to be a hard one to sharpen because there was so much noise in it to begin with. But if you take the masking down, see, you're sharpening all that noise, and you really don't want that. You want it up here where you're getting the details around the eyes, but you're not getting all that noise. You might want to play with the radius slider a bit. You run it up and it's a little more crispy. But we're not going to be printing this photo at 300%. We're going to be printing it more or less like this. And so get the details when you're zoomed in, but come back out and have a look at what the overall effect is like. I'm going to turn off the sharpening here because I'm going to be doing other things with this photo. I'm holding down Alt, clicking on Detail, Reset Sharpening. Do you see where I am? I'm going to turn that off. This was the noise reduction that we had done before when we made this DNG from our original. I'm going to go down further. Lens corrections. You know, you can load profiles that match your camera. I'm going to click Enable Profile Correction. Oh my goodness. And it's going to tell me, yep, it's getting it right. It's getting it right for the way this was shot. And that will compensate for some of the aberration, some of the defects in your camera, because all cameras have some light fall off and some lenses have light fall off at the edges and some distortions. And this will, going back, coming in again, try to automatically compensate for that. You want to be using this either in Lightroom, or if you're doing it in PhotoLab, you you have the same opportunity to do the corrections, and you only need to do it once. Same for remove chromatic aberration. You want this on if you're going to be in Lightroom. If you're going to be in PhotoLab, it has its. You only need to run it once, but this doesn't cause you any harm. You might as well run it. Transform. You can use this to automatically change the. See if it's going to do anything here. Automatically fix leveling. Uh, Automatically fix when the picture is skewed because you shot up or down. This particular image doesn't need it, but that's what this is for. Lens blur, this is new. Um, and golly, it's something that, I've spent a lot of money on lenses with small apertures so that I would get a lens blur that gives me a nice background. But now Lightroom has built this in so you can use your camera phone, uh, get an image where everything is more or less in focus, and then it has different modes, different kinds of shapes to the blur. It's still analyzing. This is slow. And you can choose how much you want it to blur. And then there's this. You can check what range of the photo you want the blur to appear in. You want it just really in the back. Um, we can visualize the depth. I turned on visualize depth here. And I want this up far enough that we're trying to throw out of focus all of the background. Alrighty. So this is going to come back. And let's turn it off. Turn it on. See what a nice job this can do in isolating folks off of a busy background. Want to see that again? I can see you're squinting, John. I'm going to turn it off. Look at the window and all the busyness in the back of the picture. Yeah, it's a family picture, and you probably tolerate that. But wow, look when you turn that on, how it makes the people stand out from what's behind them. So this is an effect that you're going to want to have for some pictures. Now, you can do the same thing in Photoshop by masking the subject, then blurring the background. Probably gives you more control, but it does a good job for quick and dirty here. Try and get my screen back. This is for vignetting. If you want to lighten up the edges or darken up the edges, that can help, particularly in landscape, that can help pop things out. But where I'm headed is calibration. Uh, Calibration is a screen that we almost never use, but it has some things to offer. First of all, you can make sure you're on the current version. Uh, well, there's Lightroom periodically will update the way they the way they express photos in terms of the controls. And if the current version will have the most variability, but if you want to go back to a prior version, or if you want to see what version the photo is, because it may not be a recent photo, you can see it here. But if you go to these saturation sliders, you can saturate and kind of change the color mix for different color channels. Now, the best way to do this, I'm going to turn this off, is to look for a color that is not heavily present in your photo and go there first. So I'm going to try the blue first. And well, that's not too fancy. Let's go up here to the greens. See, I double clicked on the slider to reset it. I'll go up here to the greens. Especially with landscape photos, this is a very quick way that you can get a lot of pop into your photos. Now, I'm going to turn him off. And we're going to take this photo to Photoshop to get rid of this character over here. So I maybe get rid of her too. She's kind of only half with it. So I'm going to right click on the photo, edit in. Now, in the handouts that I gave, I talked about the settings to make so that when you get it into Photoshop, you've still got a 16-bit image. And I'm not going to cover that here unless somebody needs that special. But we're going to click edit in Photoshop. It will take a minute for Photoshop to open, and I'm going to need to unshare this screen. Stop sharing. And then I need to share. Share my Photoshop, which is coming up here. It's not quite loaded, and then I'll be able to open it for you. Okay. It's coming. Well, let's just share this. Okay, we are now in Photoshop with this picture. I'm going to make this full screen so that I can see it. Hopefully you can too. I'm going to look over my shoulder at the other computer so I can see what's coming up. Okay, we're going to get rid of this guy. First thing in Photoshop, you've got adjustments, image, adjustments. Don't use this unless you want to destroy the layer that you're on. Always work on a separate layer. Now, there is a time to use adjustments. You can use adjustments on a layer mask. And that's, oh, I am forgetting, you can't see that screen. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to move to the other screen. Okay, we're going to go to screen 3. Okay. This is how I'm looking over my shoulder so I can see what you're seeing on another monitor. I have a 3-screen setup, and one of my screens in Photoshop, it just has the tools laid out that I use. Now, down here, you're going to see the toolbar. That's going to be something you're going to see on your setup. And you're going to see the channel panel over here. But you can set up any of these panels that you want to show. You get to choose which ones. You can choose a workspace, and you can see I've made several workspaces. There are default workspaces like this photography workspace that come built in. But once you figure out which panels you want open for which tasks, and if you've got two monitors, why not have most of them open? Uh, this is a way to use the extra space and still have a large area for your photo. Okay, I talked about edit image adjustments. Now you should be able to see these adjustment options come in that are going to adjust the layer that you have active. You don't want to do that because then you will have made an adjustment that actually changes that layer. And if you change your layer, you can't go backwards. It's destructive. Uh, you can also use these on layer masks, and that's something that you may want to do from time to time. But what you want to do instead is to make a new layer. Now, if you put something on a new layer above it, then this layer, the background layer, is going to be unchanged. And what you do here, I'm going to get a brush, which is B on your panel, and get black. And I'm going to paint something awful. And up here in the corner, you can see that it's painted over part of the image. I'm going to uncheck this, check it again. Now, while I'm here with this brush, I'm going to show one other little thing. On brushes, I know I'm getting rid of this guy. We'll get there, but this is kind of important to understand. If you're using a brush, you've got settings up here at the top for opacity and flow. Can you see where I am right at the top of the screen? I don't know how well this is coming through. Let me look back here on the image. And if you change the opacity, let's drop the opacity down to 20%, and the flow is 100%, it's just going to paint that opacity automatically. Let's change the opacity back to 100% and take the flow down. See, I've held my right click or left clicked on the word flow and drug it down. Let's drag it down to maybe 18%. And I'm going to paint. I didn't like what that did. Okay, here, flow 18%. Let's go down further. All right. Here it's far less opaque, but when I cross over an area, it will build up until you get to the maximum opacity. If you want to make gentle adjustments, get your flow low and your opacity high. All right, we're going to get rid of these guys. We're going to take a look at getting rid of him. All right, new layer. One alternative is just clone him out. I've picked up the clone tool, and I'm going to go, in a minute, I'm going to be talking about this tool just to show you. It's the remove tool, because I want to be at the main screen. And if I change screens again, you're not going to be able to see me come back and select the remove tool. But that's where I'm going to be going. All right, so I'm going to change screens again. Share. This. Okay, we're back onto the picture in Photoshop at more or less full screen. First, I'm going to get the clone tool that we talked about. I'm on a new layer, as I said, and you can make this tool larger or smaller by by using the bracket key. I'm going to use the bracket key on, well, it's the and bracket key. I've made it larger. Click, Alt, hold, click. Come over where you want it to paste and see these aren't lining up real well. But we're going to paint him out. You can see I've got the flow set at 1%, so it kind of feathers the situation in. Line that up, paint him out. This can work okay when you've got something small or when you've got something that has a distinct background. But we're going to get really creative here. We're going to select him. Well, no. First, I'm going to do the remove tool. Now, remove tool is relatively new and need a new layer to work on. And it does a pretty good job. I'm going to make it larger again. And I've got generative with the remove tool. You can set it to use content aware fill or to use generative AI. Now here I've got generative AI off. I'm sampling all layers and I'm just going to paint this character. Paint him around and he should fill in. Poof. Now now you can set this to either automatically run each time you lift your mouse or not to run until you finish all your mouse clicks. I have it set to not run until I finish all my mouse clicks so I can make sure I get the area that I want. Trigger it to run, and we'll see what a good job it does getting rid of this guy. It should work pretty well for him, and you see it does because the background that he is on is pretty much uniform. But you can see when you get down here that it didn't do a perfect job of lining up the drape. So let's get rid of that, bring him back, and we're going to use generative AI this time. And you could use it in the remove tool, but instead, I'm just going to make a selection around him. I've got the selection tool that lets you just drag a loop. Freehand selection tool. All right, we got him. Now we're going to run the generative fill option on that and see what happens. Abracadabra. You folks are being awfully quiet. I can't believe somebody doesn't have questions. Now, what I want you to see is how much better job it did. It's not perfect, but how much better job it did lining up the lines in this background. And you could touch that up with just a little bit of cloning where it isn't quite right, and you'd be rid of him easily, quickly. You'd never know that he was there. While we're at it, why not get rid of her? I never liked her anyway. She's kind of an outsider. Let's get rid of her. All right. Now, what I want you to see here is, I'm going to make this bigger again because I've got a big monitor and I'll move up and I'll look at it closely. I can see things you can't see. The generate feature, when you use it with generative fill, gives you three options. Here's one. Here's 2. Here's 3. What's the best match? And here I'm looking for least distractive option because this is background. I don't want your eyes going there. I think 2 looks best to my eye. Now, so we've got rid of both of those people. We're going to go back here and look at the beginning of this. What we have now, we've made a lot more compelling picture if we're really interested in these subjects rather than the other family members that are kind of hanging around on the outside. These are things I do in Photoshop rather than trying to fool with the tools in Lightroom, because it's like, if you've got a piece of beef, you can try and cut it with a butter knife. That's Lightroom. Or you can bring it in here in Photoshop and use the sharp tools, and you're going to be a lot happier. You may accomplish the same thing in the end, but you're going to have a whole lot less frustration using the good tools that are in Photoshop. I'm going to come back to Photoshop here in a second, but I'm going to close this image and not save it. Go back to Lightroom. You aren't going to Lightroom with me. I'm going there alone. And I'm going to open this image that you don't see yet. Edit in, Photoshop. I want the original image. And in just a second, you should see, well, I guess you can already see this coming in from Lightroom. So that's good. This is an image of the May Day Court from Amity High School in 1945, I believe. It's a scanned image, and like most scanned images, it's got some issues. I'll go full screen. But I have gone through this image and I have done a lot of fixing up. Here, we're going to turn that one off. Did a lot of cleaning up, and a lot of this cleaning up was done with the remove tool. Then I made it black and white. With black and white, you have sliders that, if you're working, if you're working in a black and white image that's been scanned in color, a lot of times, some parts of it, I'm moving the blue slider. See how I'm getting rid of a lot of that garbage on those suits? A lot of times you can clean up your image an awful lot just by using the sliders and adjusting the lightness or darkness of different colors as it is combined into the image, into the black and white image. All right, I want to show you a little bit from curves here. Where am I? What you can do in curves, here, I'm going to turn this curve on and off. What I've got in this picture, and you're going to find some of these, where it's pretty much washed out in a lot of areas. The tonal differences in these faces is not very much. You want to save the detail in the dresses if you can. And you can use a curves layer to try and give you more room to work, give you a histogram that more completely covers the subject. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to start a new curves layer. And I'm going to pull this panel over here so you can see what I'm doing. Look over my backs. Yeah, I can see what you can see. This little eyedropper, you click it and you can use it to sample a lightness or darkness from your image. Now I'm going to go over here on Doris, and I'm going to try and get a very light area. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to try and get a somewhat darker area here. But I didn't have it on, so we're going to go back. We're going to get a light area, and then we're going to try and get a somewhat darker area. And you can see on the curve the uh, the areas that you're affecting, how light they are and how dark they are. The other thing I'm going to do is go get a dark tone because I don't want this messing up the darks. I want to more or less freeze that. Now I'm going to go to the darker of these two dots. I'm going to use the down arrow key. The problem with the curves adjustment is it's very sensitive. And if you use the down arrow key, you can move it one step at a time. And you can see, or you should be able to see, that I'm pulling contrast into these faces that otherwise were flat. And now we've got contrast. That's probably a little much. I think I would slide this up here a little. If you overdo it, you can adjust the opacity of the curve to kind of slide it in where you want it. And you can recover some of those blown out highlights or lack of gradation in the brighter tones. Now we are going to go to another curve. I love this. Now, this is the auto section in curves. Hold down the Alt key when you click auto. And you get options. Now, the default is, I think this is the default. I find per channel contrast to be the better option. Sometimes this snap to neutral midtones, that will adjust colors. And sometimes you really like that. This is a good way to get a color correction. Sometimes you don't want it. So if you're getting something you don't like, you want to unclick it and take a look at it. And see how quickly we've brought a decent contrast into this photo. I also, bring this over here. I also have a curve that I've built that I keep in here all the time that raises the darks because sometimes this automatic overdoes the darks. Here I don't need it. I have 3 different LUTs that I can turn on. Right here, this is an action that I can run. Brings all this stuff up and change the these make subtle differences in tone in different parts of the image. This tends to work with the lights. About 2 weeks ago, I posted a link to how to get these LUTs. And this sunny LUT works with the darks. Maybe that's a little too much. But you kind of see what we're up to here. I'm going to put these panels back because the purpose of this was to show you what the curves tool will do and why it's so much better than the curves tool that you get in, there we're moving, why it's so much better than the curves tool that you get in Lightroom. Now, I'm done with this image unless somebody has questions or something that they want to see. I'm going to close this image and go back over here to poor old Gladys's funeral. Now, I'm going to open Topaz because I want you to see the interface, but I'm not going to actually run this because if I run this in Topaz, we're going to sit here for 5 minutes. So I'm going to open Topaz. Oh, that was the wrong button. Sorry, folks. This is Topaz Photo AI that I'm going to open. and just let you have a look at what this has. This has, whoop, yep, you can see what I'm doing. All right, we're in good shape. You can browse images and bring in an image from your folder, and you can bring in a whole lot of images. Let's go to a place that has a lot of images. You can bring them all in at once, and then you can run a batch on them. That's the point that I'm making. So that this process can be pretty slow. And so if you can set up one and then copy the settings to others, you can go get a sandwich or maybe even just go to sleep while it runs. What I want to do is I want to go back to Lightroom here. Get rid of that. It's going to let me browse for images, but I want Lightroom back. I'm going to close this again. I'm going to close this again. I'm going to get this image, which is the original image. I'm going to right click on it, edit in, and I'm going to edit in Topaz Photo AI. That's how you get it there. And I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments because I don't want it messing up what I already have on my computer. Now, Topaz will do the raw processing. If you want to take your raw images in there, uh, it will do the sharpening and denoise and change the resolution. Uh, but I find that DxO Photo Lab does a lot better job. So I don't use it for that. I use it at a later stage in the process. When you bring it in, it's going to give you a before and after slider. It's going to suggest what you might want to do with it. I've got it set to automatically bump the resolution up to 8,000. It gives you different algorithms for doing the enhancement and the upscaling. I will run this upscale on images that I don't intend to enlarge, and then set 1x on the size. Because what it will do then is it will go through this whole image and it will generate a new image using this data. And the new image that it comes out with is going to be sharper and cleaner because it's using AI to process out some of the gunk. Where I'm going, though, is super focus beta over here in the corner. Because in this picture, we've got a lot of areas that are just, they're just not sharp in the original image. And this will go in and find the edges and generate what I'm going to show you in a second and render it out as a new image. But it is slow, slow, slow. You see how long it's taking just to render the preview. So, unless you've got a computer that's a whole lot more powerful than mine, you're not going to want to sit through this process. So I'm going to do the next best thing. By the way, you can adjust the strength over here. Let's say we're doing medium. Got to increase the focus quite a lot. You can look at the differences and figure out which one you want on your individual photo. We're going to dump this. Are you sure you want to exit? Yes. And show you the magic. Okay. This is going to take a second to render. But see, instead of just global blur. I mean, it doesn't look like I was shot on my new camera, but this is spectacular. This is the restored photo, the Photoshop version. This is spectacular sharpness, spectacular detail compared to what we had at the beginning. And what got us there was the Topaz uh, beta refocus application. Where do we go next? Well, let's take a quick look at a star shot. This is shot at Malheur. Oh, I want to turn these things off. This is shot at Malheur with a 135. And it's been run through Photolab to get rid of some of the muck. This is how they look. Only this is shot with a 14. But this is how they look straight out of the camera. And you can see there's just, this is a 15-second exposure. There is a lot of garbage in there. Here is coming out of Photolab, and with a little bit of adjustment in Lightroom. And this is where I want to focus, is on the adjustments in Lightroom and what you can do with these. First step is to get your blacks black or pretty near black. Now, you're going to find that as you go in here and you move this down, you're going to start losing the little stuff. And you probably do want to lose a lot of the little stuff. Then your whites, I'm going to take this down and see how we've quickly thinned out the number of stars that show. Pick it up, we've got more. You can control how many stars you're going to have showing in your star field by controlling the whites. Stars are not white. There's always some color variation in them. You may want to pump up the saturation to try and bring that out, because you've got yellow stars and blue stars. And again, we're going to work with texture. Texture has a huge effect on how intense you want these stars to be, how many you want to show, how tight you want them to be. And if you have one good star field picture, you can use that picture over and over and with as different backgrounds. But sometimes you're going to want it to be more subtle. Sometimes you're going to want it to be more powerful. And the point of this is, I'm working the clarity slider now. In Lightroom, you can make that picture whatever you want it to be for whatever your needs are in a particular photo. So you don't need 500 star shots, and you don't need to go out and try and make the stars show when you're shooting the picture in the field. Just get the picture of the mountain or whatever it is, and then paste the stars in behind it. No need to sit out there all night trying to get this right. You're probably going to end up doing a composite anyway, even if you do the star shot on site. So, get your good stars and just paste them in. This is a 135. I posted a star shot brush that for Photoshop that I had made from this. We'll go down here to texture again, just to show you how you can determine how evident, how apparent those stars in the background are going to be. There's no one right setting. The point here is that you have the flexibility to make it whatever you want to be. I think, well, we can visit this one just for a second. I'm going to open this in Photoshop, edit in Photoshop, edit original, because I want to bring in the layers that are already in this. This is a big PSB that I've worked a lot. It's got a lot to it. I just want to turn on and off the curve that adjusts the face tones. And it should be finding its way to Photoshop before too long. It's not cooperative. I will just dump it. But we'll see what it's going to do. Oh, here we are. Where I want to go is down here. All this stuff off. Okay, where am I? I want to turn on. Okay. I'm going to bring this over so you can see what we're talking about. This is a curve to fix this face that's so flat. And I'm going to turn it on and off for you so you can see the effect. See how she's so washed out in that face. And then by coming in and sampling the very light area, I hope you can see the properties panel here. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Well, that didn't help. But I've sampled it in the high highlights. I've sampled down here in some of the shadows, and I've just subtly pulled them apart. Here, I'm going to pull it further. And I've got that skin looking like it wasn't blown out in the photo. And that is the beauty of what curves can do for you on these photos that have this kind of a defect. I'm going to close this and we're going to go to our last subject. We're going to go, I'm working in a collection, but I'm going to bring this photo up and then ask it to show it to me in the library. Go to folder in the library. All right, now I'm in the library file that has a bunch of these photos that were shot earlier this week at Silver Falls. You know, the light is muddy. There's not a lot of variation. This photo is a raw photo. I'm going to go in here. We can see, whoops, I need to get rid of that. We can see that we've got all kinds of grain, but this is what you get after running these kinds of photos through Photolab. You see it's cleaned up an awful lot of that. You could get most of the way here using the denoise raw processor in Lightroom. So these are all these NEF files. And then here we're coming back from Photolab and we're going to go, I took all of these photos into Photoshop as a stack layer. I selected all of them here, right click, and then edit in Photoshop, open as layers. See the bottom option down here. I'm not going to do that because I've got this, which is going to take a moment to open, but it's going to show you what we can do stacking these photos. Is it coming? Edit in, edit in Photoshop, edit original, edit. It'll be there in a second. These are shot at a 6,000th of a second. My idea is to be able to isolate individual water drops in this waterfalls as it comes down. And it's taking it a little minute to open this stack because I've got all these images in here in different layers just to save us the time of watching it process. While it's loading, does anyone have anything they want to say? Boy, you're a quiet group. That or I can't hear you. I don't know which. But this should open directly. Meanwhile, let's go over here while it's trying to open that. This is the final photo. Now, again, it's shot with muddy light, but what I've done is I have stacked. Oh, now it's starting to open, so I guess we were too impatient. In a moment, you'll see why it's taking it a bit to get this open, because I'll pull my layers panel across. I put my properties back. Got to make it a lot smaller. All right, put my property panel back and bring my layers panel over where you can see it. And we're going to go down to the bottom. Okay, I've brought all of these in as layers, and we're going to take a look at some of them individually. You see, there's a lot of variations. This is shot at 20 frames a second, and a 20th of a second makes quite a difference in this water. So you shoot a bunch of them. What I've done is I've aligned them, which means I've selected all of them. Shift, select. I've gone to edit, and then auto align layers in the main Photoshop menu. And it's aligned these layers in here. It's made another copy, and these are lined up just in case there's some slight variation in the sticks and then the positions, because I was shooting these on a tripod, but there still can be little differences. And then here's where the magic starts. I made a smart object out of the full selection and then run the different averaging programs on that stack. And you get there with layers. I can't show it to you because it's on the other screen, but I'm going to tell you about it. And then you go down to Smart Objects, and then in Smart Objects, you go to Stack Mode. I better switch screens so you can see that. So I'm going to stop that share. Going to share here. Okay, now we should be on, I'm going to click layers. Okay, I just had to look back to make sure you could see what I'm seeing. Layers, go down to Smart Objects, over to, and this is after they're converted to a smart object. You go down to stack mode, and you've got a number of different stack modes that you can use. I have a action that runs different stack modes automatically, but you can run them one at a time off of here. Now I'm going to come back and stop that sharing, and then I'm going to share the other screen, which is this one. Okay. I want you to see the difference in the falls as we do these different. This is one of the images that's aligned, just to give you an idea. These are some of the original images. Now we're going to do a minimize. This is going to get the darkest area in each frame. Why do you want that? Well, you may want to be able to get greater separation in some of this texture within the water. This is median. Now, median and mean are different. Median is the most common value, and with a large number of frames, median is going to be your best choice for getting rid of garbage. Things that show up in one frame but don't show up in any other are going to drop out. Let's say you had a mosquito flying or a bird flying back and forth that you didn't want in there. Well, on median, it's just going to disappear. Mean is an average of everything. And you can see that you average this water and you end up without much texture. Maximum, I like maximum because it fills out, it uses all of these frames to put in what they contain as far as background. So it gives you a really full waterfalls. I'm going to turn these off and then show you how going with maximum really fills out your water. But then this is auto blend. This takes the sharpest parts of each of the layers and gives you a lot more textures than you're going to have with a single frame from down here. Okay, so we're going to turn this on. And what I'll often do is turn on maximum as well, and then adjust the opacity for how much of that more complete fill I want in the background of the photo. Alrighty, I'm going to go back to Lightroom and stop and put my layers panel back where it belongs. At least I think I'm going to. And ask if there's any questions, because we've been at this an hour and 20 minutes, and maybe there's something that I need to cover that I haven't covered. So, anyone have anything to say? Well, I'm not hearing anything. And
Well,
I'm,
first of all, Max, Rick here, I would
Yeah.
like to thank you for taking the time to put all this together. There's a lot of really cool information here that I'm going to delve into a little deeper.
well, I appreciate the chance to do this. You know, the real meat is in the handouts. The things that I talk about on adjusting the settings and the preferences, that will save you an awful lot of trouble. When you go in this develop module and you start looking at the presets over here, there are an awful lot of presets that you can try Uh, and there's a lot that you can download. I've got a bunch of them from online here. That's different than the profiles. Oh, I really do need to cover this. I'm going to browse my profiles. Profiles are different than presets. Presets are just sets of settings. You can build a preset. You can get everything with a preset by adjusting the
Oh,
sliders over here in different ways. But that's not true with the profiles. The profiles are your starting place.
Have fun.
And what I want you to see is there are camera specific profiles. I may not be able to get it on this image because it's been manipulated in Photoshop. Uh, we need to go to Lightroom really quick, pick up a different image that hasn't been worked in Photoshop. Um, Here, see if I can find a NEF image here. You can kind of tell I've got a lot of images on this computer. Um, oh, this is going to be bad. All right. We start at the bottom here. But when you get to your profiles, you've got some that Adobe gives you. Adobe Color is where it starts. But if you browse these, you get camera specific profiles. And you want to be using the camera specific profiles because they make the adjustments on the, relative to the specific camera that you have. That's one of the most important changes that you can make. So, all right, I've played around with this probably enough. That was the thing that I forgot to cover. Well, I can load. You want to see that new On One program that they're just offering for free? Uh, if I can get this start menu up.
okay. While that's going on, I have a question regarding the profiles.
Oh, sure.
Where did you get those? I know that Tony Kuiper had a bunch of linear profiles, and so I downloaded mine for the Olympus. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, Adobe has a lot of profiles that just, they provide with the program.
Mm-hmm.
And among them are some camera specific profiles. As you can see in this screen, I've got things from Shark Pixel, I've got things from Matte, I've got things from On One. Everything that you see here is free, and I've found it. These are adaptive profiles here that come with Lightroom. There's an awful lot of these profiles come with Lightroom. And then there's a few that I've made, but not very many. So open this, or this is the preset side. Let's go over here to the profile side. I'm on the right-hand side. These are
Mm-hmm.
my favorites, but I'm going to go down through here. These are camera specific, and the neutral can be a good starting place if you're going to work this photo in Photoshop. If you do something like landscape, uh, the program has done a lot of things to your photo that you're going to end up trying to take apart later. If you start with something like flat, flat, or standard, you're going to have a very neutral start going into this. Uh, but I've got a ton of different profiles that I've uploaded from different sources, and the handout that talks about profiles is going to list places where you can download these. It's
Okay.
page 6 of the SDPG September 8, 2021.
Okay.
So there's just a wealth of stuff out there, and free is my best price. I am going to ask it to load this on one effects just to let you see what it looks like. Now, I haven't played with this. Edit a single shot. Let's try and give it a photo to work with. I don't really care what I get. Let's, I think you're going to want to see those. Yeah, we'll load these. I'm just going to pick one. Boy, did I make a good choice, huh?
Mhm.
When I'm photo stacking, I sometimes have uh, images that are pretty bad in the stack, but you see, this is going to pull out the detail in the tree trunk. So it's important to have that exposure among the mix. It's got a bunch of presets over here. Uh, let's see what like this looks like in cinema. It's going to give you a bunch of alternatives. It's got much of the same features that you're going to find in Lightroom, although it does say that it will add layers. Uh, you know, it's a big head start for a free program. It's got retouching. Whoa. Okay, it's going to ask me what I want to put in here to go with this. I'll put that one in to go with it. Add it as a layer. It's going to let me blend this stuff across. It's just a quick look to let you know what's here. And for a free, I mean free like forever program, it's pretty good. Here's a one of their profiles with it. Here's another. Uh, but if you get to where you want, this is where they make their money. Uh, if you want to add additional profiles or add additional textures or add additional brushes, then they have these packages that they're going to sell you. So, this is kind of like selling you the razor and then you want to buy the blades. You're going to have to pay more money. But it's not bad. It's not bad for a start. Certainly, people who are upset about paying for Photoshop for the Adobe program ought to look at this and see if this will meet their needs. So that's what this is. And I posted today links to the on one sites that make this available.
Yeah, I downloaded this earlier, but haven't looked at it yet.
Well, like I say, there's a lot here. I'm not going to be using it because I've got all I can manage in the programs that I'm using now. But I've heard some members of our club that were pretty upset about paying Adobe. And, you owe it to yourself to see if this will meet your needs. So I'm ready to call it a morning
Well,
unless
one thing I did see about this, you can also use it as a plug-in with Lightroom and Photoshop.
you can. You can. You can. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to go back to Lightroom. Oh, golly, this photo needs help. I'm going to say edit in, and then we're going to go to on one effects 2023. Now, notice this is 2023. It's a year back version, and they'd like you to upgrade to the current version. But I'm going to edit the original. Just, it doesn't want me to. Well, I'm going to edit a copy. A plugin is in use. You will need to finish running it before proceeding. Okay. So it's not going to let me bring a photo in because I already have this open, but that's fine. Uh, just enough to know that you can bring photos across.
Okay.
Hey, Max, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have any comments about using like Nikon or other camera specific RAW editors?
Um, I I only have experience with the Nikon editor, and I've found that they keep improving it a little. Sometimes there'll be new camera features that only work in the Nikon editor until the other companies get around to incorporating uh, what they need in order to make those new features work. For example, when I got my current camera, it was probably several months before Lightroom had the profile in it to work with that camera. And it has a different compression algorithm, the camera does. And so you just couldn't get the stuff to pull up. So the camera specific programs are good in those early days. Sometimes there are certain features like tethering and camera control that work better in the native program. But as far as overall photo editing on hardware that's been out long enough for the commercial programs to adapt to it, I just find that the commercial programs are easier to work with, uh, and you can do a lot more with them. But the camera specific programs are free. And well, free if you bought a camera from them, but they can be they can be good enough for some users. Anything else?
Also, I would point out, because of personal experience, that the camera-specific editors may not get upgraded as often as, say, like Lightroom, Photoshop, or any of those others.
Well, of course, because they're only upgrading for their particular users. Uh, if you use a Lightroom program, golly, they're trying to get all users of all different equipment to have software that works. So, uh, so they're naturally going to be upgrading a lot because different things are coming out at different times.
Mhm. Well,
Well, what a party we have had. And I'm glad that you all have been a part of this, and we'll call it a day. I'm pleased. Now I have been recording this, and I'm going to try and make the recording available because we have some folks that wanted to be here who couldn't. So we'll try and make that work. And I'm going to see if I can figure out how to close this up. First, I want to stop the recording.